Sometimes, a phone call in the middle of the night doesn't just wake you from sleep.
Hey, my beautiful family. Welcome to A Story a Day, bring you powerful and deeply loving story.
It awakens the part of you that you've long forgotten. New York, October 31st. The late October rain fell hard, drumming against the glass windows. Outside, the glow of jack-o'-lanterns reflected in puddles, distorted into mocking, grinning faces. Car horns, Halloween music, and the steady rhythm of rain blended together, a sound both lively and cold. On the 41st floor of the Nova Bio building, the lights were still on. Nathan Cole, 38, CEO, sat alone in his glass-walled office. The glow from his monitor reflected off his thin metal frames, casting light across a stack of thick reports. Nova Life, Human Life Extension Project, Final Draft. On his desk sat a cup of coffee gone cold and a small ceramic pumpkin. A gift from his assistant that morning, with a handwritten card. "Happy Halloween, Mr. Cole. Go out and enjoy the night air, even if just for 5 minutes." He never opened the card. 2:07 a.m. The phone buzzed for the 4th time. On the screen, St. Mary's Hospital, emergency line. He answered, his voice rough from exhaustion. Nathan Cole. On the other end, a woman's voice, professional but urgent. "Mr. Cole, this is Lauren Pike, head nurse. Patient Clara Hayes was just admitted to the ER. She listed you as her emergency contact." Nathan froze. Clara Hayes, his executive assistant. The woman he had always thought of as a perfect machine. Punctual, precise, silent. 3 years working together and they had never spoken beyond work. He asked quickly, what happened to her? She was unconscious when she arrived. Critically low blood pressure, signs of acute anemia. We're stabilizing her, but we need authorization for emergency treatment. A heavy pause. Then Nathan stood up sharply, grabbed his coat and rushed out. On the desk behind him, the open draft of Nova Life, Human Life Extension Technology, flickered under the cold blue light. Its title reflected on the glass wall like a cruel joke. Outside, the city was still celebrating. Orange lights, demon masks, drunken laughter. Children running through the rain shouting, "Trick or treat." And through that chaos, a man in a black coat ran across the street, unaware whether he was running from Halloween or from himself. St. Mary's Hospital gleamed in the distance, bright as a ship in the dark sea. The air reeked of antiseptic. A voice echoed through the hallway. "Code Blue, ER Room 3. Nurse Lauren hurried toward him, clipboard in hand. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Cole. The patient is receiving a transfusion. We suspect a bone marrow disorder, possibly acute myeloid leukemia, but we'll need further tests." "Will she be okay?" he asked. Lauren shook her head slightly. "It's too early to say. What surprises me is, she has no one else. Her records list only your name." Nathan stayed silent. Rain lashed against the glass outside. Through the emergency room window, he saw Clara, pale, fragile, her breathing faint. No longer the woman in the gray suit, with that calm yet firm voice every morning. "Good morning, Mr. Cole." What remained now was a small, fragile figure, and a silence that felt terrifying. Lauren spoke softly. "We need consent for extended treatment. Can you sign on behalf of her family?" He hesitated. "I'm not a relative." "There's no one else, Mr. Cole. It's you, or no one." The pen trembled in his hand as he signed. Each stroke felt like it carved into his chest. 4:00 a.m. Nathan sat in the corridor, eyes unfocused, staring toward the near-empty parking lot. The overhead speaker droned again. "Code 302, ICU." He leaned back against the wall, his mind blank. A memory flashed. Yesterday morning, Clara had sent her first message in 3 years. "I'm taking the day off. Hope your meeting goes well." That was it. No reason, no emoji. He read it, then forgot. Now that message cut back into his mind like a knife. His phone rang. David Hale, Nova Bio's head of security, was on the line. "Nathan, you okay? I saw footage of you leaving the building at 2 a.m. Paparazzi are already spinning stories. I'm fine, but I need you to do something. Go ahead. Find out everything you can about Clara Hayes, quietly." Roger that. 5:30 a.m. The door swung open. Lauren stepped out, her eyes a mix of fatigue and relief. "We've stabilized her for now. She's responding well to the transfusion." "Thank you. But you should prepare for the worst if the marrow tests confirm it. She's had this too long." Nathan nodded, eyelids heavy. He, the man about to unveil the technology that could extend human life, now stood helpless, watching a real human life slip away in front of him. Lauren looked at him. "Do you know anything about her? Family? Medical history?" He shook his head. "No." "Address? Next of kin?" "None." A long silence. The hallway lights reflected in his eyes. Tired, empty, hollow. 7 a.m. The rain had stopped. The city was slowly waking up. Nathan stood by her bedside, watching Clara, her face still pale but peaceful. He whispered almost to himself, "Why me, Clara?" No one answered. Only the steady beep of the heart monitor filled the room. On the table beside her bed, he noticed a small pumpkin-shaped card, the drawing clumsy and sweet, the handwriting slightly tilted. "Happy Halloween, Mr. Cole. Thank you for trusting me, even if only at work." A single drop fell. He couldn't tell if it came from his wet hair or his eyes. The first light of dawn streamed through the window, blurring the words on the card. Outside, the paper pumpkins hanging in the hallway swayed gently in the breeze. The city was waking from its night of celebration, but Nathan had just stepped into a real nightmare. They say Halloween is the night when everyone wears a mask, but when morning comes, when the light pours in, perhaps the scariest thing is facing the true face beneath your own. And sometimes, to understand a person, you must walk into their world, where every silence tells a story they never had the courage to speak. The first morning after Halloween. The New York sun was still pale after the night's rain. On the sidewalk, smashed pumpkins and dying neon lights left behind a damp smell, a chill that slipped through every crack of the city. Nathan sat in his car, staring at the small apartment building in front of him, the address listed in Clara's hospital records. He had never been here, nor did he know why she lived in this part of Brooklyn. The building was old, peeling paint, rusted railings. Yet, among dozens of dark windows, one on the third floor glowed faintly warm, the soft orange light of a jack-o'-lantern that hadn't been turned off since last night. The building manager, an elderly Italian man, looked at Nathan uncertainly. "Miss Hayes? She's a sweet girl, always paid on time. I saw the ambulance last night, no idea what happened." Nathan nodded slightly, voice low. "I'm her relative. I need to go inside." The old man unlocked the door, muttering, "Apartment 302, be careful. I haven't cleaned up." The door creaked open. The air inside was damp, tinged with the burnt smell of pumpkin pie. The small apartment was tidy, yet carried the quiet weight of someone who had lived alone for too long. On the wall hung unfinished paintings, sunsets, children's Halloween masks. Nathan stood still. Every detail in that space felt like a fragment of a woman he had never truly seen. A cracked porcelain cup, a few medical textbooks, a tiny cactus by the window, dry but still alive. On the desk lay a thick notebook, a half-open laptop, and a pile of dusty medical bills. The red letters stamped across them read, "Overdue payment, 3 months." He brushed his fingers over one page, his chest tightening. The hospital name was St. Mary's. A small photo had fallen to the corner of the desk, Clara, in hospital clothes, smiling brightly among a group of children in Halloween costumes. On the back, in faint silver pencil, was written, "If I can make someone smile today, then this day wasn't wasted." Nathan sat down at her desk. The laptop screen was dim, reflecting his face in ghostly light. When he touched the keyboard, a prompt appeared. Enter password. Next to it lay a hand-drawn pumpkin card, shaky lines, the paper stained by water. He picked it up and saw the tiny words written in the corner. "Happy Halloween, Mr. Cole." His lips trembled. "Halloween," he whispered. Then he typed, "Nova 29. The screen lit up. At the center of the desktop sat a single folder, its name simple and almost childlike, Pumpkin. He opened it. Inside were documents, hospital invoices, scattered data charts, and among them one folder stood out. Bold, cold, written in all caps, "Nova Life Trial, Confidential." The blue light from the screen cast over Nathan's face, filling the small apartment with a strange warmth and chill, as if the past and present had collided in that single moment. He froze. Outside, rain began to fall again. Slow, heavy drops. The ink on the small pumpkin card had blurred, just like the fragile line between duty and emotion he had never noticed until now. The room felt utterly still. He scrolled through the files, lab results, test reports, treatment logs, and at the end, a note. Patient removed from program due to financial ineligibility. Decision approved by Marcus Lynn, CFO. Marcus Lynn, the man he'd always called his right hand, the same man who just yesterday told the press, "Nova Bio is closer than ever to the dream of immortality." Nathan sank into the chair, hands trembling as he held the stack of documents. His dream of immortality had been built upon the quiet despair of his own employee. The phone vibrated. David Hale. "Nathan, I found a few things. Clara once received a full scholarship for a public health program, worked with 2 charities, then joined Nova Bio 3 years ago. Does she have any family? None. Orphaned since childhood, lived alone. There's a record of her volunteering at an art center for children with cancer. They said she'd grown weaker lately, but still showed up to class until she collapsed." Nathan tightened his grip on the phone, eyes fixed on the unfinished painting on the wall, the sketch of a child in a pumpkin hat, smiling. "Do you know why she was removed from Nova Life?" David hesitated. According to internal records, CFO Marcus Lynn signed off her removal from the support list. Reason: no longer aligned with cost efficiency strategy, low ROI. "Low ROI?" Nathan repeated, his voice turning cold. "They measure a human being's worth in profit. Nathan, I want every email, every memo, anything related to this, today." "Roger that." He sat again at Clara's desk. The dim orange light from the little pumpkin lamp washed across his face, half in shadow, half in glow. On the last page of her notebook, a shaky line written in red ink. "Nova Life may extend life, but can it save the human soul?" He whispered, almost to himself, "You knew this, didn't you, Clara?" Then his eyes caught an unsent letter tucked beneath the notebook. "Dear Mr. Cole, if you're reading this, it probably means I never got the chance to say this in person. I don't blame Nova Bio, I just want to believe that behind every technology, there's still a heart, and I believe you have that heart." Nathan closed his eyes, drawing a deep breath. Outside, the rain tapped faintly against the window, each drop like the sound of pins falling in a silent room. That afternoon, he returned to the hospital. Lauren met him, her face drawn with fatigue. "Mr. Cole, we got the marrow results. The patient has acute myeloid leukemia, subtype M2. It could have been managed with early treatment, but she stopped her therapy 3 weeks ago." "Stopped? Why?" "She said she didn't want to trouble anyone. Some of the medication wasn't covered by insurance. She kept working to pay for the treatments. I told her to rest, but she just smiled." Nathan gripped the armrest tight. She had chosen to keep working for him, even as her body failed her. Lauren hesitated. "I'm sorry if this sounds personal, but were you and she close?" Nathan shook his head. "No, never." Then, gazing through the glass door at where Clara lay, he added quietly, "But maybe I should have been." Outside, dusk was falling. Orange lights flickered back to life as the city prepared for the second night after Halloween. Nathan left the hospital, walking through crowds still dazed in the lingering spirit of celebration. A little boy in a vampire costume ran up, raising his candy bucket. "Trick or treat, mister." Nathan bent down, smiled faintly, and dropped something inside, the small pumpkin card Clara had once given him. The boy frowned. "That's not candy." "No," Nathan said softly, "but you'll remember it far longer than any candy." The boy laughed and ran off. Nathan stood watching, his hand tightening at his side, a cold resolve burning in his eyes. He knew what he had to do. If Nova Life was built on the sacrifice of people like Clara, then he would tear off its mask, no matter the cost. There are Halloween nights when the scariest ghosts don't hide in the dark. But inside the very building we've built ourselves. Because sometimes, when we choose to do what's right, the greatest enemy isn't someone else, but the darkness buried within. 2 days after Halloween. The Nova Bio building blazed with light early that morning. Dozens of reporters crowded the front steps, cameras aimed at the glass doors. Headlines exploded across the news feeds. Nova Bio CEO seen leaving HQ at 2 a.m. with hospitalized assistant. Affair inside Nova Life executive team. Nathan walked through the chaos, not avoiding the lenses. He wore a black suit, no tie, his gaze steady, calm, and resolute. Inside the elevator, his reflection stared back at him. Red eyes, sleepless and hollow. He looked like a stranger. Behind him, a few employees whispered, "He really took her to the hospital himself? Heard they were close, but didn't his wife pass away?" Either way, the press is going to shred him. Ping! The doors slid open. Nathan stepped into the boardroom, where Marcus Lynn and Evelyn Ross, the company's largest shareholder, were waiting. Evelyn, elegant with silver hair neatly pinned, offered a diplomatic smile. "Nathan, I'm sorry about the media situation, but Marcus has a point. Our stock dropped 12% this morning. Maybe you should take a short leave just until things settle down." Marcus crossed his arms, calm and deliberate. "Exactly. The public needs time to cool off. Nova Life's announcement is imminent. We can't let personal drama jeopardize years of progress." Nathan sat down, his tone cold and steady. "Personal drama? You mean the woman dying because of this company's decision?" Marcus smiled faintly. "What are you talking about? Nova Life saves lives. If she didn't qualify, that's a financial issue, not an ethical one." Evelyn interjected. "Marcus, step outside for a moment. I'd like a word with Nathan." Marcus held Nathan's gaze for a second. Sharp, cutting, then left the room. Evelyn sighed. "Nathan, I've known you since Nova Bio was just a small lab. I believe in your vision, but if you want to save one person, don't burn the entire building down." Nathan met her eyes. "If the building was built on people's bones, then it deserves to burn." Evelyn fell silent. Only the faint patter of rain began to tap against the window glass. That afternoon, Nathan returned to his office and reopened the company's internal database. He found dozens of files, patients and employees removed from the Nova Life program for reasons like low ROI, insufficient insurance, non-aligned with company interests. Each line read like a sentence. He pressed the record button, his voice calm, unwavering. Initiate Project NovaCare. Allocate 10% of quarterly profits to an independent medical fund supporting employees with critical illnesses, even those outside insurance coverage. I accept full responsibility. Then he sent an internal announcement across the entire company with a single subject line: "No one deserves to fight alone." Social media erupted. Her NovaCare shot to the top of trending charts. The press split into two camps. NovaBio CEO launches PR stunt to save his image, a humanitarian turning point in biomedical history. But just as hope began to flicker, Marcus struck back. That night, a leaked email hit every member of the board. Subject: NovaCare, money laundering front. Attached were forged documents accusing Nathan of funneling money through the NovaCare fund, exploiting patient Clara Hayes to manipulate the media. By morning, every major headline screamed, NovaBio CEO accused of financial fraud. NovaCare, compassion or cover-up. Outside headquarters, a forest of cameras and microphones waited. Hungry for the fall, David Hale called, voice tight with urgency. "Nathan, the news is everywhere. Someone inside set you up. It's probably Marcus." "I know, but anger won't fix this. I need the truth." "What are you going to do?" "Prove them wrong, in front of the whole world. But first, I have to protect her." That night, Nathan returned to the hospital. Nurse Lauren met him, her face heavy with fatigue. "Miss Hayes woke up for a bit. She's weak, but she recognized you." He stepped into the room. Clara lay there, frail, pale, yet her eyes still bright. She smiled faintly. "You stayed?" "I'm not going anywhere." "I heard the news. The media's saying you used me to polish your image. They're wrong." "I know." She turned toward the window, where moonlight slipped through the glass. Her voice was soft but clear. "I don't need to be saved. I just need to know I was worth believing in." Nathan stood still. In that moment, he understood. Some things can't be bought with money or reputation. They can only be redeemed with truth. The next morning, an emergency press conference was announced. Marcus and Evelyn sat at the center of a long table, facing a wall of flashing cameras. Their expressions were calm, almost rehearsed. Marcus spoke first, his voice smooth, measured, theatrical. NovaBio assures full transparency in all operations. Any claims of exploiting patients for personal gain are completely unfounded. CEO Nathan Cole has been temporarily suspended pending internal investigation. Camera flashes exploded. The back door of the conference hall swung open. Nathan walked in. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. He strode straight to the podium, placed both hands on the microphone stand. "You want the truth?" he said calmly. "Fine, let's have it." Marcus shot up, startled. "Nathan, you're not authorized to— No one in this room has the right to stop me from speaking." He swept his gaze across the audience, his voice steady, resolute. Nova Life was built to extend life, but somewhere along the way we forgot what life means. I won't deny my own mistakes. I stayed silent while people like Clara Hayes were cut from the program, not because they were beyond help, but because they weren't profitable. He paused, eyes locking on the cameras. If compassion is a crime, then I'll bear that guilt for the rest of my life." The room fell silent. Evelyn drew a deep breath but said nothing. Marcus clenched his jaw, eyes darkening like the storm clouds. Just as Nathan stepped away from the podium, his phone buzzed. A message from Lauren Pike. "Patient Hayes, complications. Immediate marrow donor needed. No compatible match found." Nathan bolted from the hall, leaving behind a forest of flashing lenses. The world had just witnessed a CEO standing tall, but now he was just a man running through cold rain, praying for a fragile life. Some battles aren't fought in boardrooms, but in hospital corridors where every heartbeat becomes a vow. St. Mary's Hospital, late afternoon. The corridor was dim, filled with the rush of footsteps and the sterile hum of fluorescent lights. Nathan hurried down the hallway, his shirt still damp from the rain. Lauren met him at the far end, voice hoarse. "Miss Hayes is in critical condition. Her leukemia is progressing faster than we expected. She needs a marrow transplant immediately, but there's no match." Nathan's breath quickened, hands trembling. "Me, test my sample." Lauren stared, hesitant. "You understand the risk. If it's not a full match, the graft could fail." His voice was firm, unwavering. Failure without trying is worse. She nodded and signaled the staff to prepare. For the first time in years, Nathan felt his heart pounding, not from fear, but from knowing he was finally doing what was right. Night fell. The bone marrow donation ward glowed softly in the dark. The hum of the extraction machine merged with the steady rhythm of his breathing. On the wall, the clock read 2:07 a.m., the exact moment 1 week ago when everything began. Nathan smiled faintly, exhausted, yet strangely at peace. "Maybe God's giving me a chance to make things right, Clara." Lauren stood beside him, her eyes filled with quiet admiration. "There aren't many people like you, Nathan." He exhaled softly, eyes closing. "I'm just trying to be human again." The next morning, sunlight poured through the hospital windows. Nathan sat in the waiting area, a white bandage wrapped around his arm, his face pale from blood loss. Lauren stepped out, holding an envelope, her voice trembling. "The compatibility came back at 82%. We have a real chance." He let out a long breath, the kind that carried both exhaustion and relief, as if he'd just climbed out of a deep abyss. Lauren hesitated, then added quietly, "I won't reveal the donor's name, but you already know, don't you?" Nathan smiled weakly, voice hoarse. "Just tell them it was someone who believed she was worth saving." Meanwhile, at Nova Bio headquarters, Marcus Lynn wasn't resting. He called an emergency meeting with the board and the PR team. On the screen, leaked hospital footage showed Nathan lying on the donation bed. Marcus slammed his palm against the table, his voice sharp and cold. "This is our golden opportunity. We'll use his own actions to bury him." Evelyn frowned. "Marcus, what are you planning?" "We'll leak that Nathan donated marrow to manipulate public sympathy, using the patient as a PR stunt. Attach forged documents showing he used company funds for her private treatment." "You're insane. If that's false, he's too weak to fight back. Let the public do the rest." Marcus's eyes glinted like steel. This wasn't a financial war anymore. It was annihilation. That afternoon, headlines exploded across every major outlet. "Nova Bio CEO donates marrow to lover. PR stunt or genuine compassion." Nova Care Fund suspected of covering private medical costs. A media storm erupted. Stocks plunged. And while Nathan lay in the hospital, growing weaker by the hour, he had become the center of a hurricane he could no longer defend himself against. David Hale came to visit, face tense with frustration. "Nathan, Marcus leaked the fake emails and the donation footage. The press won't stop calling. I can hit back." Nathan shook his head. "No, don't turn compassion into a PR weapon. Let the truth speak for itself. Truth can't outrun the internet." Nathan smiled faintly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe not, but it can outlast it." Evening. The rain had returned. Lauren sat outside the operating room, watching the monitors flicker. Through the glass, she saw Nathan pacing quietly, his eyes steady, his face pale, before finally sitting down, folding his hands in prayer. Inside, Clara was being prepped for the bone marrow transplant. Lauren approached, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You should rest. You've just donated marrow. Your body's still weak." He shook his head softly. "I'll stay here until I know she's made it through." The nurse watched him for a long moment, then said quietly, "You know, on Halloween night, Miss Hayes asked to go out for just half an hour. She said she wanted to bring gifts for the kids in the oncology ward, even though she could barely stand." Nathan smiled faintly. "She's always thought of others, even when she shouldn't have." He lifted his gaze toward the operating room. "This time, let me think for her." While the surgery was underway, David's phone buzzed. An anonymous message popped up. "Check internal emails. Marcus Lynn transactions." David opened the link. His eyes widened. Dozens of bank transfers, secret contracts, and email chains between Marcus and foreign investors appeared. Undeniable proof of embezzlement from the Nova Life Fund. He immediately forwarded everything to Nathan. Nathan skimmed the files, then called Evelyn directly. "You wanted to know who was laundering money? Check Marcus's accounts." Evelyn's voice turned cold. "I'll handle it. Now." 3 a.m. The surgery had gone longer than expected. Lauren finally stepped out, exhausted but smiling. The transplant was a success. The marrow's responding well. If no complications arise, she'll make it. Nathan stood motionless, his entire body releasing the weight he'd been carrying for days. He sank into a chair, breathing out a long, trembling sigh. His eyes blurred. Lauren placed a hand on his shoulder. "You can be proud, Nathan, not just because you saved a life, but because you saved yourself." He looked through the glass window, at Clara's peaceful face resting under the soft white hospital lights. And for that moment, all the noise of the outside world disappeared. The next morning, news broke across every major network. CFO Marcus Lynn under investigation for financial fraud. Leaked footage showed him signing documents linked to payments from an anonymous partner. The board immediately suspended Marcus and reinstated Nathan Cole as acting CEO pending full investigation. But Nathan didn't return right away. He stayed at the hospital, quietly seated beside Clara's bed, dark circles under his eyes, yet carrying a strange, calm light. The light of a man who had finally found his conscience again. Clara woke in the late morning. Nathan was asleep beside her bed, his arm still wrapped in white bandages. She whispered softly, her voice faint but teasing. "You really are an idiot." He stirred awake, smiling wearily. "First time someone's called me an idiot, and it actually feels good." She asked in a quiet voice, "Why did you do it?" He met her gaze, his tone low and calm. "Because I used to think I had to save the world, but I realized all I needed was to save one person, to start." Clara laughed through her tears. "And you did." Outside the window, the rain had stopped. Sunlight slipped through the white curtains, bathing them in gold. One who had once feared the light, and one who had brought it back. In the battle between light and darkness, some don't win through power, but by giving away a part of themselves. 3 months later. Winter in New York was fading. giving way to the first blush of spring. St. Mary's Hospital glowed with morning warmth. The once sterile walls now carried a gentler hue. Clara stepped out through the gate, her short hair brushing her shoulders in the breeze. She wore a beige wool coat, thinner now, but her eyes shone with life. Across the street, Nathan was waiting. He no longer looked like the stoic CEO once splashed across Forbes. His sleeves were rolled up, and in his hands was a bouquet of sunflowers, the same flower Clara once sketched in her notebook with the caption, "They always turn toward the sun, even when the sky is full of clouds." Clara smiled. "First time I've seen a CEO buying flowers at a street market." Nathan's voice was warm, steady. "I'm learning how to be ordinary." "You're improving fast." They shared a quiet laugh, the kind that needed no explanation. Since the Marcus Lynn scandal, Nova Bio had transformed completely. The board appointed Evelyn Ross as honorary chairwoman, and Nathan returned as CEO, but this time with a different mission. The once cold conference hall now bore a new inscription across the wall. "We don't just extend life, we protect its meaning." In his first speech after returning, Nathan said, "Nova Bio has created technology that can change life itself, but somewhere along the way, we forgot what gives life its meaning. From this day forward, every decision we make must answer one question. Does it help someone live better?" No more cold handshakes, no more emotionless reports. In their place came community health programs, scholarships for underprivileged students, and most notably, the Clara Foundation, a fund dedicated to helping single patients battling critical illness, born from one woman's quiet courage and one man's rediscovered humanity. One spring afternoon, Nathan and Clara visited the new foundation. The small gallery walls were filled with children's paintings, bright, clumsy bursts of color, but full of hope. A curly-haired little girl handed Clara a handmade card. "Miss Clara, I drew this for you. Here's the sun and a sunflower. And here's Mr. Nathan, the man with a heart as big as a pumpkin." Clara laughed, her eyes shimmering with tears. Nathan tousled the girl's hair. "I like that description." The girl looked up innocently. "Pumpkins aren't scary, mister. They just shine brighter when you put a candle inside." The innocent words silenced them both for a moment. Nathan turned to Clara, smiling softly. "That little girl just summed up my whole philosophy." Clara nodded, her smile gentle. "Ours, actually." October, a year later. New York glowed once again with amber lights. Autumn wind rustled through the golden trees. Halloween had returned, but this time, there was no fear, no masks. Nova Bio hosted its first Light in the Dark charity festival along the Hudson River. In the small pumpkin-lit garden, children laughed. Doctors and patients shared candy and stories. Amid the gentle chaos stood Nathan and Clara, side by side, dressed simply, smiling quietly. Clara looked around, eyes glistening. "Isn't it strange? A year ago, I was lying in a hospital bed. Now I'm standing here, in a white dress, on Halloween." Nathan straightened his bow tie, smiling. Maybe because Halloween isn't just about fear anymore. It's about looking straight into the darkness and realizing we survived. And found ourselves again. Exactly. This time, no more masks. As night fell, the festival reached its peak. Every light in the garden went dark, leaving only hundreds of small candles glowing inside pumpkins, forming a massive heart at the center of the courtyard. Nathan stepped onto the stage, his voice carrying warmth and quiet strength through the microphone. "Exactly 1 year ago, I received a call at 2:07 a.m. That call took everything from me, my reputation, my career, and the illusion I had about who I was. But it also gave me back something I'd lost, the true meaning of life. He turned to Clara, his eyes tender. I once thought Halloween was a night of lies and masks, but now I know it's the night we learn to take them off and face ourselves. Applause rippled through the garden. Clara stepped forward, taking the microphone with trembling hands, but a clear, steady voice. I'm no one's miracle. I'm simply someone who was touched by one, the miracle of compassion. And I believe every person here can create that miracle too, just by caring, for real. For a few seconds, silence hung in the air, deep, glowing, sacred. Then the garden erupted in applause, laughter, and the soft flicker of candlelight, a sea of warmth against the night. Late night. After the festival, Nathan and Clara stood by the river. Across the water, city lights scattered into 1,000 reflections, like tiny souls smiling back at them. Clara spoke softly. I'm still not used to hearing my name on a foundation that big. Nathan's voice was calm, deep. It's not a foundation named after you, Clara. It's named after your faith, in people. She turned toward him, eyes lingering. If someone had told me a year ago that Halloween would become the most beautiful day of my life, I would have laughed. He smiled gently. And now? Now, I believe it. The wind brushed past them, carrying a few golden leaves onto the surface of the water. Nathan took her hand and whispered, Next year, we'll hand out candy at home. No lights, no masks, just you, me, and a few sunflowers. Clara laughed softly, and maybe a few children too. He blinked, then laughed out loud. Is that a promise or a threat? Both. They laughed together, their laughter mingling with the wind, the river, and the distant hum of the city falling asleep. They say that after every Halloween night the sun rises again. But for Nathan and Clara, that sunrise wasn't just another morning. It was proof that sometimes miracles don't come from magic, but from a phone call, a held hand, and a heart that still believes in tomorrow. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If this story meant something to you, let us know in the comments. We really do listen. Share this with someone who loves a good story. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next soul-stirring journey.